Ole Miss got a commitment, and we're going to tell you all about it.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for tuning into the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Steven Willis. I hope you're having an excellent Monday afternoon. Ole Miss got a commitment from Ryan Miret. We're going to talk to Daylan Flowers about that. We're going to talk about the wide receiver room, and we are going to talk how they attack the portal to make 2026 the main run. 2025 is going to be really good. 2026 has a chance to be another special type run. Anyway, Daylan, first of all, really great to see you. Glad your surgery went well. And it is great that we're back to some semblance of normalcy again. Ole Miss just within seconds of us starting to record got a commitment from Ryan Miret, the interior offensive lineman, the 4-star out of Miami. I talked to the Florida football scout, Brian Smith, the Locked On recruiting guru, and he said, hey, he's seen him several times from the Miami area, and he is going to start at center at some point at Ole Miss.
This is a huge pickup for Ole Miss and John Garrison. John is a guy that has been here for a few years now, and someone that I've been very critical because of just I would say inconsistency of the offensive line since his time at Ole Miss. But this is huge for Ole Miss in a lot of different reasons. But the biggest thing for me is just high school recruiting, especially the offensive line, is something that you really kind of favor sometimes over the transfer portal. There's an ability when you get guys coming in young, hungry, and understanding of exactly what type of coach and system that you want to run and are able to build in that system for a year or two and then be put in the spotlight. I feel a lot more comfortable about guys like that than maybe getting a few guys out the portal that may have played 3 years at another school, another power Division I school, but have not been in this system. We're not recruited by this coaching staff. We're not understanding of what it takes to play and live and breathe and work and be great in this system. And so getting Ryan is huge for me. You know, I think John Garrison has done a fantastic job at recruiting both the high school and the transfer portal, but I feel like they focus a little bit more on the portal over the last few years. So getting this commitment is huge, and also understanding how this guy moves and kind of functions. He's a guy that works really well in the trenches, a great size. He's a wrestler as well. So he has the ability to just be athletic, kind of enjoys getting dirty and putting face to face with guys. So this is a guy that you're glad he's on your team and not when he's on the other team. So I'm very excited. Ryan is now a part of Ole Miss, and it says a job well done to our staff that they were able to get him in like they were and just that quickly get a commitment from this guy. It speaks to the volumes of what they're able to tell them, what they're able to show these players when they're on recruiting, and as well what the ability is shown now for the future. Because this recent draft class, I know it was filled with guys that, a lot of transfer portal guys, but this recent draft class with Ole Miss has now set them up for the future and telling guys, if you want to get to the draft, if you want to go to the NFL, you can do that successfully here at Ole Miss now, which is huge.
Yes, and a year ago they got Devin Harper, the top 100 interior offensive lineman out of Louisiana. Ryan Miret is another highly ranked interior offensive lineman. We're going to bring him up and show what's going on with him on Wednesday's show. So we'll dig a little bit more into it as well there. This is just a big get. This reminds me of like Iowa or Minnesota or Wisconsin. They always have those centers that get drafted highly that have a wrestling background. And I think Creed Humphrey has something like that as well. The Oklahoma center that is now in Kansas City. I like to hear wrestling when it comes to interior offensive linemen.
Yeah, I do too. And another fun fact about Ryan, he also was a defensive lineman at one point. So he understands the capabilities and the totalities of playing both sides of the trenches, understanding how maybe a defensive and defensive lineman may think, which may prepare him a little bit better to be an offensive lineman and, be a center and play, a certain extent at the offensive line at the next level. One of the guys that I always come to think of when I first got here was Jaden Williams. He was recruited as a freshman, committed to Ole Miss and played a lot his freshman year, has dealt with injuries over the last year and a half, really a lot. So Ole Miss fans probably have low-key forgotten about Jaden Williams and how good he can be for this offensive line. But I really have a strong favor for recruiting offensive linemen out of the high school stands more than taking them out of the portal. I think that's kind of the one like really big asterisk when you're going in the portal and you're kind of thinking, how can I make my team better from the portal? That offensive line is a little bit kind of scary to recruit in the portal. But getting these guys out of high school is so big. But now the real work begins for John Garrison and Lane Kiffin. I've said this before, and it's kind of a little bit more flawed now, but getting guys to commit is the hard part, but keeping them committed is the even harder part nowadays. So if we're able to get Ryan and keep him here, it's going to be fantastic. And
he said he's shutting down his recruitment, so it's done.
That's great. And so now building this, we're now going to allow us to build other pieces on that offensive line that benefit Austin Simmons in the future, and that allow this offensive line to shape up what this offense truly wants to be. And that's also having a respectable run game, which allows the play action and the pass game for Ole Miss to be a little bit more effective in the future as well.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk to Daylan about how the 2025 football team is coming together, and specifically the wide receiver room, as we start to talk about that stuff as well. So stick around for that. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their mind. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live, and this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop the closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. I was just on the app, and the zone deals were offering 10% off exclusive zone deals for the FIFA Club World Cup matchups that's going on currently. I love that I can see my exact view before I buy. No surprise, and the app makes it ridiculously simple. 2 taps, and I am done. And with Game Time's guarantee, you know you are getting the best deal. If you find a better deal on the same row or section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we are back with Daylan Flowers. Listen, the wide receiver room at Ole Miss has a chance, in my opinion, to be better top to bottom than in any wide receiver unit they've had over the last 5 years at Ole Miss. I mean, you honestly have to go back to AJ and DK and those guys to have a wide receiver room that has this much upside.
It's a great point, man. I actually was able to attend a lot of the spring practices this spring, and I was specifically watching the wide receivers a lot. And you say that, and it feels like we say that every year, that this wide receiver room is better than last year. And so it's one of the best that we ever had. And I truly believe that this year. I think one of the two big key factors is, number one, Cayden Lee, and how just great he looked last year. You know, Cayden coming in last year, I think a lot of people expected a new formation, a lot of new energy, and a lot more confidence from him. But what he was able to actually showcase last year put the respect and confidence from Ole Miss fans into Cayden Lee and his abilities. And so getting a guy like that coming back that has already shown he can be really good with Austin Simmons as well is going to be huge. But another guy that I love so much, Steven, is Deshaun Tripling, coming from Oklahoma State, who had a fantastic year last year. This guy, I've been watching him in practice, was watching him in practice in the spring. His size is unimaginable, but his leadership ability was really evident as well when I was watching practices. He's really like screaming across the field, trying to get guys to understand where they need to be lined up, you know, kind of understanding how this team needs to move and play. And as well, he was speaking really well, but he was playing really well. He was showcasing how good his leadership was with his talents as well. So those two guys have really showcased this spring, and, you know, Cayden last year, obviously, and Deshaun at Oklahoma State last year, what their capabilities are going to be. But as well, just the raw talent is that we have as well. It's really exciting to see guys like Caleb Odom, who was strongly recruited from Ole Miss, and now looking at him, you're like, this is going to be exciting to see him play. He's got a strong head on him, and he seems excited to be here in Oxford. And another guy that I really will give a shout out to going over spring practice was Deuce Alexander. He looks really good, really quick, probably one of the quickest guys that I was able to watch, just kind of with the eye vision test looking over the spring practice. He looks really good. They were having him on kickoff formation and punt returns a little bit as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Deuce Alexander in the backfield during punt or kickoff returns in 2025 for Ole Miss. But he looks really, really good. He even, kind of, I call him Randy Moss catches. He kind of went over a few defenders' heads and brought in some snugs and touchdowns during spring practice. So Deuce Alexander is a guy that I'm really excited about. This entire wide receiver room for Ole Miss has developed from high school recruiting, transfer portal, and these guys are meshing really well, which speaks of the volume of how much we lost from last year's team to this year and how quickly this team was able to recruit different guys to fill different positions. But now the true challenge begins. We watched last year the amount of talent Ole Miss had, but before Trey Harris got injured, it kind of was like they weren't able to really utilize all those answers. And now I think they're going to be able to with the ability of what Austin Simmons does and how comfortable he is in his receiving core. So I hope that's going to be a push in the forward. But as well, I don't want to forget about the tight end room either. You think about a guy like Luke Haas coming in from Arkansas who has SEC experience and, was doing really, really well at Arkansas over the last couple of years and has really fit into this team. And, of course, Daquan Wright, who showcased great talent last year and played with Austin during some drives last year as well in the Arkansas game. They got a touchdown pass from him. Daquan has really filled in the role of understanding what it took to get the team to where it was last year. And now with the season under him with this playbook and with this team, I really expect Daquan Wright to kind of be a breakout player for Ole Miss in 2025.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention Harrison Wallace, who is kind of the presumptive starter over on the other side of the field from Deshaun Stribling. This wide receiver unit is stacked. And if you look at the freshman that they signed that was in there, you did not see Caleb Cunningham because he just got to campus, but you did see Winston Watkins. What were your impressions?
Another guy that was on, punt and kickoff returns, again, really, really quick. Like, you were surprised by how fast Winston really runs. And one thing that stood out to me about Winston was his route running ability. Like, it was really polished. When they put him on the outside, when they put him in the slot, Winston was running routes really, really good, getting in the middle of the field, kind of confusing the secondary and allowing open parts for the wide receivers to be out and open on the outside parts of the field, and was also a deep threat as well. When guys were kind of staying front and center on, man-to-man coverage in spring practices, I was watching Winston go down on a streak deep field and catching some tough touchdown passes in the deep end zone that really surprised me. Winston is not a strong, Trey Harris, Deshaun Stribling type built wide receiver, but he showed a lot of capable qualities for a wide receiver that can bail you out in moments when you need a first down on a 3rd and 7 or a first down on a 4th and 3 play when you're expecting a guy to kind of wiggle around and get something going when it's not there originally. So Winston really surprised me over the spring practices that I was able to watch. A very quick guy, great route runner, and showcase a lot of superstar qualities that when given the chance, I'm sure he would do the same thing when football time comes in the fall.
When we come back, we will talk to Daylan all about this Ole Miss football team and how they've actually been constructed thoughtfully for the 2026 season. Stick around. We'll tell you all about it. We are back. Steven Willis, Daylan Flowers, and Daylan, you look at this roster. The first thing you notice is there's not a whole bunch of one and dones. There's still a few, but several of them have multiple years of eligibility. And I think that is intentional because what we've seen in the transfer portal over the first couple of years is one and dones. They can be successful. And you look at Walter Nolan and Trey Amos, especially the elite one. But if the elite players aren't there, there is still some developmental practice that needs to happen before you just kind of turn them loose. It kind of feels like this team is being constructed for 2026.
You used the perfect word right there, Steven, was developmental. I think that within what college athletics has looked like now, when you get guys coming out of the portal so often, they usually are either gone from another school for after that first year, or they're leaving to go to hopefully the professional leagues after 1 year. Developing these guys has become so hard for college coaches now. And when you're able to recruit guys that have eligibility for years to come, whether that's in the high school or the transfer portal market, you're able to develop guys to play exactly how you want to play. I think one of the best things that I watched Pete Golding do when he first got here was simply have his players buy into what he was feeding. And that changed the landscape of what the 2023 defense looked like compared to the 2022 defense. And I thought Pete did a fantastic job at that, but he was also able to develop some of those players to his second year last year when we saw one of the best Ole Miss defenses that the program has ever had. This also gives the capability to do the same thing for the future. I think a lot of people are scratching their heads going into 2025. What will this team look like? So much was lost on both sides of the field, a completely, basically new team, new quarterback, just so much new faces. What's going to be a custom? And, we don't know. There's so much kind of raw talent on this team, but we won't really know how good they are until we see them in the fall. But it builds the confidence of what 2026 really is going to be. I think everyone believes Austin Simmons is going to be great. We've seen the tangibles, the plays, the clips, his arm talent, his confidence, his ability. But I think getting a year under his belt, a full playing, will really help him moving forward. And I think when 2026 comes and guys see what his actual capabilities are, and you're also able to recruit a little bit more directly to what his play style is, and on the defensive side as well, I think this Ole Miss team is really going to be stacked for 2026, because that's another point that Ole Miss fans are definitely concerned about, is that Ole Miss secondary for this year. There's a lot of new faces, a lot of guys left, a lot of talent is gone, and a lot of these guys that are now here kind of have not really gotten the respect of Ole Miss fans, which is understandable. Some of these guys are raw, didn't play much at either their older schools or, coming out the high school recruiting ranks. And some of these guys kind of need to showcase what they can really do. So getting another year under their belt going into 2026 was going to be huge. And, it breaks you up because you think this year it's going to be a dangerous year for Ole Miss. And I'm not going to sit here and say that. I think Ole Miss still has the capabilities to win any football game they play in 2025. But there's definitely going to come a more of a confidence and a more of abilities when 2026 rolls around with this team, because you understand what the landscape is going forward after this year.
Yeah, and it's not that they can't compete for a playoff in 2025. They can. They just need a little bit of help in 2025. In 2026, that is going to be a team like the 2024 team that was thoughtfully put together for a run. They didn't make it in 2024, but that wasn't because of the plan. That was because of the execution. I think Austin Simmons, he has a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks to ever come through Ole Miss, but he has to develop thoughtfully and slowly and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I also think that actually playing in the system for a full season will help him out more. I understand that he's been here a few years now and he knows the playbook, and he understands what's, required for him to be a great quarterback here. But, we obviously have not seen him play, a full-time role here at Ole Miss yet. And I think getting that year full-time under his belt will be huge. He has a great arm talent, but we kind of want to see what he's going to be like when he needs to face pressure on, when some blitzes are coming at him. How can he kind of shake out of those moments? How can he be a true leader? And I think that's going to be showcased this year, and it's going to be evolved even more after this year with the year under his belt. But as well, I think guys that are, not at Ole Miss this 2025 year are going to see how great his abilities are, how great this coaching staff's abilities are at doing what they do, and are going to be like, this is where I want to go. This is where I can develop and be an NFL player one day. And they're going to take that and come to Ole Miss.
Daylan Flowers from the Daylan Show and the Rebel Walk. What do you got going on, buddy?
Oh, man, just working, doing some schoolwork, recording as well. KK Deans, former Ole Miss women's basketball player, will be joining me on the show tomorrow. So that'll be exciting. Just doing a lot of recording, working out the details with Keith Carter as well. So hopefully in the next week or two, that should be getting ready to be recorded as well and dropped. Super excited about Keith coming on and talking to him about a bunch of different things. But yeah, just been working, man, really just working and grinding every day.
The Daylan Show, that's some good stuff. The Rebel Walk, they do good work over there. Thank you very much, Daylan. And thanks everybody for making the Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the top Ole Miss podcast out there. Your support means the world to us, and we are the front door to the university. For the second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on rapid changes in the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football.